Okay, hello, this is Georgina Adams with the Environmental Management Commission. Trying to get a meeting on February 28th, 2023 going. We're one short of quorum and expecting it to show up. But in the meantime, we will proceed with, I don't know, do I call the meeting to order?
Yes.
I'll call it the meeting to order now at whatever time it is, 9:24. And we can, short of having quorum, we can take public testimony at this time. And if one of our other commissioners doesn't show up, I guess we'll have to cancel the meeting. Although I would wonder, can we just get information?
No.
No, we can't even get information. All right, we will take public testimony. And Peter, would you please pipe up if you see our fifth commissioner join the meeting in case I miss him. First off, we'll take Corey Hardin. Corey, what part of the agenda were you wanting to speak to? Are you still on, Corey?
Yeah, I'm on the director report.
Oh, you're there.
She's in person.
I see her. I'm sorry. Go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so Corey Hardin, just speaking for myself today about the director report about the Kilo wastewater plant. First, want to thank you folks for your service on the commission. And I'm urging that you take action to ensure that an environmental assessment is done for two projects. One is the Gila wastewater plant rehab and replacement project, and the second is sewer system rehabilitation and line extension collection pipe. I first want to thank Director Mansour for his tremendous work on getting the funding and a contractor and writing up the specifications for the Kilo plant. And obviously a lot of work, and I appreciate all his efforts. And it's a major step towards addressing the sewage problems on the island. However, the department is saying there's no need for environmental review under Hawai'i law. They're saying it's exempt, but that doesn't seem to be justified. The exemption notice cites exemption class 2 number 7, and that is replacement or reconstruction of existing structures and facilities, including wastewater systems. But you can't do it when the State Department of Health permit is required. And I'm assuming a Department of Health permit would be required for this. They're also saying exemption class 3 number 30. That only applies to fencing and further walls and gates. And there's a department exemption list, which requires a program to encourage public input. I know it's been talked about at this commission, but you don't get very many members of the public. Also, any environmental assessment, we need to look at these two projects together. Rules say a group of actions shall be treated as a single action when the component actions are phases or increments of a larger total program. So if you have a plant, you need to have a collection system, and if you have a collection system, you need to have a plant. So it's a total program. Also for the collection system, I just learned some federal money has been set aside for that, so then you might be looking at a federal EIS. So you really need an environmental assessment to thoroughly analyze the problems, look at alternatives, get public input, and look into any unforeseen impacts. If not, we spend millions of dollars of taxpayer money and end up with a lot of problems. And also it would leave the county vulnerable to legal action. So there's the exemptions don't seem to be justified, and the plant and sewer system rehab and collection pipes, you can't do segmentation. They need to be considered together. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Corey. next up, I would like to note that we do now have quorum. So I will officially call the meeting. We took Corey's testimony earlier just to make sure that we collected that. But now that we've got quorum, I can officially call the meeting to offer. The commissioners present are John Olson and Della Aksuka, who are with respectively districts 4 and 3 in the meeting room. And also online, we have Lee McIntosh from District 6 and Rick Gaffney. Gratefully is still participating, even though his term is up, from District 8, and I, Georgine Adams, from District 9. So we have quorum. And just to keep it back flowing, we'll go ahead and accept the other public testimony that has been asked for, and that's by Claudia Rohr, which, and you wanted to speak to section 7.4, as I recall in your chat, which is the wastewater updates. Claudia, take it away.
Thank you. Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I wanted to testify about this exemption notice that appeared in the environmental review. It was published on January 8th. And I had the opportunity to go into the wastewater branch and speak to the division chief about this. And he explained to me all about how the low-income housing project in Conaside wanted to put in an additional laundry mat for washing clothes, and that the previous private contractor who ran the wastewater plant had cannibalized parts from one half of the wastewater plant to repair the other half. And he stated that he wasn't going to do this project this way anymore, meaning replacing the whole unit with a prepackaged unit, because the bids came in at 500,000 or something and were outrageously high, and that they were going to be trying to figure out what parts were missing and to replace those. And I asked that he please post a notice that he was rescinding or amending his exemption notice, and that hasn't happened. So I'm going to criticize it so that you folks will know what went wrong, and that the next time you do this, you can do a better job. First of all, he posts, or whoever wrote this actually admitted that they didn't consult with any other agencies or interested parties. That violates HAR chapter 11-200.1-17B. That requires that if you're doing an exemption, you have to consult with other agencies and interested parties with some kind of expertise. And obviously, Sierra Club is very interested in all of this. The other thing,
30 seconds.
okay, the other thing is the exemption notice is noticing a project you don't intend to do. It should notice the project you're intending to do, and it misquotes the exemption list that you folks operate from. It does a partial quote, cuts it off it's misleading.
Thank you, Ms. Rohr.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to clarify, you're talking about the Kona Kealakea
No,
wastewater treatment plant, or which one?
the one you noticed in the environmental review on January 8th, the Uluwini Low Income Housing WWTP Repair Project. And it says that you were using a packaged wastewater treatment plant system, and you were going to install a new one, and it's not
I just wanted to make sure we were talking which location. So I appreciate that information, and
but
it has been heard.
it applies to going forward with the other projects. I was just trying to show you what had been done wrong, and so that going forward you would, and by the way, I did write to wastewater DOH wastewater branch, and they told me that there was environmental and EIS done for these projects. So you're really talking about an SEIS if you're
Thank you, Ms.
replacing.
Brewer.
I appreciate it. We had to lose so much time waiting for quorum. I'm afraid we can't let you exceed the time limit for us. But there are a couple of different people from the agency DEM on the line, so I'm sure they will try to address your issues. I need to go back to the agenda. And our first item, or I guess I should ask, is there anyone else from the public who would like to provide testimony? Hearing none. We will go back to agenda item 2, which is approval of the minutes from our last meeting, January 17. Can I have a motion to approve?
No move.
John, second? Second?
Second by Dale.
Okay. Any discussion, corrections? Seeing none, can I have everyone in favor say aye? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, any opposed? Okay, the minutes are accepted. Statement from the chair is, I'm sorry that we lost a half an hour there. And we'll try to do better next time to make sure we know we're going to have quorum. We've done item 4, which is the public statements. So moving to item 5, the unfinished business. Question that I said we would continue to have on the agenda until we've got it is the status on the pretreatment rules proposal. That's Ramsey or Dora. Want to speak to that?
Yeah, hi, good morning. This is Dora Beck, Wastewater Division Chief. I can speak to that. So we've been working on the revisions to Chapter 21 pertaining to sewers, and by inserting the EPA's model pretreatment ordinance, and we've reformatted it to match the sewer code format, and removed items from the model ordinance that don't apply to us. We've also edited the ordinance, the pretreatment ordinance, to match the titles of county personnel. We've edited definitions and requirement language to be consistent with the state and county definitions. And we've slightly changed some of the definitions as well to fit our requirements. So we do have a draft of the proposed sewer code changes to Chapter 21. And we've also reviewed Chair Georgine's comments submitted last month pertaining to sewer monitoring rule, the subdivisions, and the residential sewer fees, and address those where we could. We can talk about that a little bit more, or Chris Lowry can talk about that a little bit more.
Okay, the question I would have is, can the EMC see a copy of the draft? A lot easier to make comments when you're working off of written draft.
I will let Ramsey answer that question.
Is Ramsey there?
Yeah, yes, I'm here. I think it's really up to our corporation counsel. I know Malia in the past, she said, once we have a final draft that DOH and other entities kind of in line, then we could do that. Maybe, I don't know if Sherry could add to that, or I personally don't see a problem with sharing it, because the more comments we get early in the game, the better product we get to produce. So, Gary, maybe you could add your thoughts.
Sure. So when we have Dora indicated that we're near final draft version of it. When we are at that point that I get to review it, then we can provide a copy to our board members for review, but essentially it needs to go through the process where we're going to be putting it out for comment and review to everyone. But we do value the information that you can provide for us. So when we are at that point, then I will authorize for the board to be able to look at it confidentially to provide us comment, Georgie.
Okay, maybe at this time, since you are willing to talk about concepts, is there anything in particular that you are concerned might be controversial that you would like us to be thinking about ahead of time? What I don't want to do is slow down the process. Or Chris, if that's something you could address.
I can. Controversial. That's a broad concept. Well, I think an important thing to bring up is we are in the process of updating the sewer rate study. So that ties in with residential and industrial users and what they might be charged. The pretreatment program, again, is just for people who are not residential users. So it's industries, businesses, commercial entities. And the requirements for those are pretty much set by EPA. So the portion of the county code that we inserted for pretreatment is EPA's language. There's not a lot of negotiation there. We have to do it. We have to use their language.
So at one time you were talking about doing a more broad sewer, not only pre-treatment, but looking at the sewer regs as a whole. So now what I'm hearing is narrowed it to the EPA required commercial industrial sewer pre-treatment requirements. Is that correct?
That's what the pre-treatment program addresses. We also fixed up, we think we fixed some inconsistencies and confusions in the existing sewer code. We could go over those, or we could just wait. I mean, I envision that we'll have this wrapped up in the next week or so, and we'll be sharing a copy. And I agree, it would be much easier if the commission got a copy of it so they could go through it.
Yeah, one of the problems with rules is every word matters.
Yes. And I'm going to need some help from you guys to go over it and make sure that we're consistent throughout. We don't have any blunders that, you know, when you're editing stuff, you have an idea in your mind, but it doesn't always get translated into the written word. So I'll need help with that.
Okay. I guess from my viewpoint, you know, expedited as fast as you can. The more time we've got to give you responses, the better they're going to be. And we can certainly keep it on next month's agenda. so that we could address that
Okay.
in detail. Are there other comments from other commissioners?
Well, just one question that in terms of the allowable density that would push you out of the area of being able to do a septic tank or likewise, you know, we've got out in Puna, we've got a lot of these 5 TMKs per acre,
Mhm.
right? At
Right.
this point. And you know, and in some cases, we have 5,000 of them in a subdivision. And at what point is that going to require an actual sewer system?
You ask such interesting questions. So, in a simplistic view, we kind of have a mess on the Big Island and all across the state. And
Yeah.
the county didn't create this mess. DOH created it by saying, oh, yeah, that'll be fine, but not
Yeah.
really think about the implications. And
Yeah.
now it seems like the state's going to turn around and say, oh, well, it's too complicated for us to fix, so the county will fix it. But they're not giving us the tools or the funding necessary to make that happen. So I think at a pay grade higher than me, people have to sit down and decide how are we going to approach this. There are a number of strategies that can be used to help us along here. But yeah, you're right. We got to take a look at things. How are we going to sewer HPP or Black
Well,
Sands or any of those developments with the little tiny lots?
Yeah, in the old days, HPP was just outside of the loop because they're 1 acre parcels.
Right.
So
Now, keep in mind, that's the bare minimum you probably need. But, you know, as we know, if you're sitting on top of a lava tube, there's going to be no treatment of your wastewater. It's going to go straight in.
or within 100 yards.
Can I call a order issue
Sure.
here? We're gonna talk a little bit at the tail end, if we still have you guys with us, about the cesspool conversion process and what's
Yeah.
flowing from that. I think this topic was on pretreatment for industrial commercial and not for the residential mess we have in Puna. Okay, is that all right? So we'll come back around, John, and maybe talk about that.
Yeah, but
Unless you're specifically focused on pretreatment. Are there a lot of little businesses sitting on these TMKs?
Yes.
Okay.
Come to Pahoa, I'll show you. Although we're actually going to get a sewer system, or at least a partial sewer system. But there are other areas attached to these small lot subdivisions that have the right to commercial zoning. So
Yeah.
that's going to have to be taken care of too. Just because they haven't been built on yet doesn't mean they're not coming. And the people who own the lots have as things stand, have the right. So we better be ready for it when they show up.
Yeah.
I think that may be one of the things to be looking at these rules and say, all right, somebody is going to put a business and will need to conduct pretreatment before they put it in a sewer, and they certainly aren't going to just be able to dump it in a hole in the backyard. How is that going to work, and does it work? So I think we'll have time to get back to your question later, if you'll let me chop you up.
I've only been
Because
asking
some people are
5 years,
disappearing.
so.
Any other comments about the pretreatment standards that are being written? No, okay, I'm gonna move on to the other item number 5.2, update on the US EPA solid waste infrastructure and recycling grant program. My understanding is that grant application process has been closed. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Did we?
I was just waiting to see if Jen wanted to say anything. Yeah, so we applied on 2/15 2023, and we're partnering with Zero Waste Big Island and Perpetual Reuse. So the application has been submitted on time.
Great. And the scope of that application is,
Yeah, so
what are
that,
you doing?
so that would be for the reusable foodware system.
Okay. Is that in any particular locations or island-wide?
For Hilo currently.
Okay, great, good luck. How much were you asking for?
Jen, would you have that number?
The silence is deafening.
He was just.
Well, perhaps you'll have
Yeah.
some more detail when we get to it on your report later, Craig. Any comments about that agenda item from the other commissioners? No, okay. The third item, we were going to have Zendo, his last name is blanking on me, I'm sorry. Talk about the zoning process. They're revising the code. There's opportunity for comment. And hopefully he was going to present that, but he had to dive out at 10 o'clock. So he's gone. So we will once again postpone that. And I guess I would just encourage you individually to go to their website where they talk about what they're doing. They have a timeline on when they're taking comments. Have been having a series of open houses where they take, everybody gets to vote by post-it note and put up ideas. And they're, I think, at this stage where they're collating that, but there's still an opportunity to send in online individual comments. And I would also like to point you to the general plan that is being redrafted for 2040, I think. And how the general plan feeds into the zoning code. And there's a lot of stuff in there about sewering and trying to incorporate some of this stuff from the cesspool conversion work group, as well as, and this one I got to chase down more, the 2009 integrated solid waste management plan. Not sure why they aren't using the 2019, but I'll check into that. So at any rate, more details to come, but there is opportunity. They've got a pretty nice spread of information on their website. So please look at that individually and hopefully we'll get information next month. All right, next on the agenda is item 4, which is Councilmember Kirkowitz was going to tell us about the National Endowment for the Arts grant she got, and I believe she's showing up at 11. And it's not, so if you will allow me to, sorry, I was reading a chat. If you would allow me to postpone it until 11 when she shows up so that she can tell us about that. Do I need to take a formal vote of the commissioners, Sherry?
No, you don't.
Okay, so I'll push that and I'll come back as soon as Ashley shows up, we'll let her do that. The next item on the agenda, number 5, is talking about the permitted interaction group on barriers to commercial recyclers. This has been frustrating. I did have Dell Atsuka look at what we were trying to accomplish in that PIG. Unfortunately, I don't have other people helping me do that. And if there's going to just be 2 of us working on this, we don't need a PIG. And we could all individually gather information and report back as the need arises. So I would like to, I don't know if I can make the motion, but I would like to move that pig be retired. And if you'd like me to write up the information I've collated so far, I can do that. Otherwise, I'll incorporate it into discussions that we have in the future. My notes are fairly rough at this time. So I guess I want to go back to the commission. Is somebody really want to dive in and help do a more thorough, organized study?
Well, I mean, does any one commissioner have the reach to do it outside of their district?
The research?
Yeah,
I mean, we can talk to whomever we wish to talk to.
yeah,
You can.
okay. I mean, obviously I'm familiar with what's going on where I am, but
I guess I would just like to formally say, I don't think we need this standing or ad hoc, however you characterize a permitted interaction group, that we don't have a need for 3 or more commissioners to be talking to each other outside of the meeting to get that information. I can make sure that we're dealing with those issues on agendized items on meetings.
okay, that's what I was looking for clarification. You got it.
So maybe you could make a motion. to take
Can I make a motion, or John, you make a motion?
I think it'd be better for John to do
Yeah.
it.
I'll make that motion. Yeah,
Okay, motion to retire the permitted interaction group on barriers for commercial recyclers. Do we have a second? I can second things, right?
Sure.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No, okay, thank you. It just takes one burden off of me. And I will bring up items as they seem in agenda. And certainly if anybody else would like to agendize some issues, some of these barriers and what we can do about it, let me know and I'll get it on the agenda. Next up, and because we have so few commissioners present, I'm wondering if we should once again postpone the item 6, the tracker and assignments, and putting updates in there. I think I added an item that I believe we'll be talking about under new business today, initiated by Delasuka. But if there are any of these items that you would like to grab hold of, have ideas for, let me know and I can amend the tracker. And then we need to talk about is when it's right, bring it back to our group to see if there's some additional action that we need to do. Are there any comments about the latest version that was posted in our agenda notes? Okay, I think just get back to me if there's something you want to do, and I will continue to add as we come up with issues. I would like to comment came up in chat to share. I believe this is from Jennifer Navarra. She accidentally dropped off. The budget for the Swiffer, the infrastructure grant, was $1.5 million. And that was for, again, the reusable foodware infrastructure for Hilo. So good luck guys. I think it's an interesting project, and would encourage that Hilo would be probably the best place where you've got a stable community that would actually use this stuff. Moving on to new business, item 6. Item 1 is talking about, or would like to have some conversation, and please join in, Ramsey and Craig. Or Rick, sorry. I'm going to Africa tonight, and my brain's not quite here. Mike Rivera. To talk about land acquisition for solid waste management. And there are kind of 2 aspects to it. One is specifically, and I gave it its own number 2, and where we're going to put another landfill, because it sounds like we're going to run out of room in the one we've got. But also, number 1 is focused more on, we want to do more reuse, we want to do more recycling, we want to divert from the landfill, but you can't do that magically in a 5th dimension. You've got to have land where those facilities can exist. And Delasuka had brought up some ideas about available land. I think Rick Gaffney had also mentioned it, but just wanted to give it a more fulsome address as a new business item. Where can we, as a county, find and dedicate some property where, whether it's the county or whether it's a third party, can actually do some of the collection and sorting and fixing, selling of materials that are now going to landfill. Other comments, ideas people had, things that we should try to investigate?
This is Commissioner McIntosh. I think the bigger problem they were running into was there are lots of regulations that the DOH has that makes it very difficult to do enterprises like that.
The fact that you've got to get it permitted. Yeah.
Yeah, because even the county has to go through hoops for the transfer stations to keep them open and operating. So it's not like you can just get yourself a metal building and get you some equipment and start recycling. It doesn't work like that, at
Mhm.
least in Hawaii. I think that's the major problem that we're facing, besides that land is a premium. But the county has lots of land. It's just, I don't know. Lots of stuff gets in the way.
Well, that is certainly one of the barriers that in talking with different businesses and the former PIG, that they can't expand, they aren't permitted to do certain things. There's no room at the transfer stations to even drive your trailer, much less have another section where they could store up enough quantity of recyclable material, or to have a little fix-it shop or whatever, as we were talking before about reuse centers, the resource recovery centers, excuse me. And how do we get rid of some of those barriers? Are they all necessary to make sure? I mean, some collection of what used to be trash can be a health and safety hazard, an environmental hazard, from stuff oozing into the ground or flying away. You don't just put up a shack and say, hey, bring me all your waste because I can figure out what to do with it. So there are some minimum standards that we want to encourage to continue to happen, but how can we safely lower some of those barriers?
Well, let me jump in here.
Okay,
When
John?
when we did the payout conversion of the transfer station there to be a starting of a multi, what's the word I'm looking for? A multi-venue for recyclables. And I've got to see if I still have my copy of the document, but because we ran it by EPA, the EPA helped us with the layout. The infrastructure to accomplish the ends was never completed there. In other words, the road access was never addressed. You know, we're killing people on the highway there because they pull out into traffic that's going 50 miles an hour. The lane widths were never accommodated. The other access points were never created. But in theory, on the ground, all of these issues were to be addressed that they were at least in broad terms defined. So, I'll try to see if I can find that original document, or maybe somebody in the county can come up with it. It was paid for with a federal grant. And a lot of work went into it, but nothing beyond what you see, which was basically done under the first administration of Harry Kim, has ever gone forward. Everything else has just been let to go as it is. So
Well, I think that's the issue of coordination between agencies, and one of the issues I had hoped we could talk to Zendo, and maybe next meeting we can do that, is how are there zoning issues that get in the way and represent a barrier to setting up some localized facilities, whether it's appended to a transfer station or it's a standalone in a subdivision. Are there some things that we could do from a zoning standpoint? There's transportation issues that you've got to do the road so people can get to it. So yeah, it's not easy, and that's why it hasn't been done.
well, again, we did.
Yeah, if you can find the early plans, I could not dig them up through Recycle Hawaii. So good luck.
Okay, but they're in the bowels of the beast here somewhere.
Yeah, well, good luck. I guess question for you, Mike and Craig, as far as locations for diversion, where people can go and collect, sort, and distribute out good stuff, whether it's for sale as they do at the reuse centers, or to package up materials that have some local use. And the whole key of diversion, you have to have locations. And so have you guys been thinking about how you would tackle that problem?
Thirteen. On that land acquisition, is there any update on the different, like state or county correspondence or communication regarding land from them for the landfill? Or even DHHL? Because, it's one thing to have all these things planned for recycling, but if you don't have the land for it, it's no sense going through all of that. But I was just wondering, what's the update on the county's position on the land acquisition so far? Are there any?
Well, and I throw those questions to Mike and Craig.
Craig, you want to take a stab first?
Oh, you can go ahead, Mike.
For we really haven't done anything Georgine, on land acquisitions and thought for discussions with Craig and the team there. We've discussed putting out some pilots at various transfer stations that will do what you're talking about, become a more full service type transfer station, more of a convenience center than what we're doing now at the facilities. We just haven't implemented that into our operations. Part of it due to the staffing and resources that were discussed earlier. It's we have a tremendous struggle right now just conducting daily operations, whether it's recycling and or the collection of the materials. So at this time, we haven't pursued further operations on that type of activity.
So who in the government looks at acquiring or rezoning or allocating a chunk of land for a purpose, such as collecting non-high-fi plastic? Who does that? Who gets the land? Who do we need to bring in?
We have our own group, so we have some acquisitions that we're doing for some transfer stations, notably Hawai'i, that we're going through the process right now. But that's who we look to internally here in the county.
And that's within DEM?
I don't believe that's DEM, but it's within the county. Yeah.
It's within finance, Georgine, and with the assistance of Corporation Counsel. There's a major procedure. It's not just one person.
No, I understand it. It wouldn't be trivial to do.
Yeah, that's what I was just saying. In other words, we went through this, to my knowledge, the only other time that this has been done is with the KL, the conversion of the KL transfer station. Because it was expanded, they purchased, acquired additional acreage and all of these other things, and they mapped, we mapped out at least in the roughly what it would take to do all of these things based on the population that the service area.
Well, I think it behooves us, both DEM, to go digging in files, and you, John, and anybody else you can think of for those old plans. But that's basically the concept of these resource recovery centers. And how would we implement it here on this island? And I guess, does EMC want to support and further investigate? How do we make that kind of thing happen? How can we eliminate the barrier, if you will, of land availability? And I'm asking for comments from the commissioners that are here. And Rick, I see your hand up.
Yeah, a couple of things come to mind. The first question is, does anybody define how much land is required for one of these consolidation stations? That's a starting point. And then secondly, I think it's obvious that the location of these would best be immediately adjacent to a transfer station. So the first question is, if we need an acre, or we need 2 acres, or we need 5 acres for this facility, then are there 2 or 5 acres of county land immediately adjacent to the facility? Because acquiring county land for this purpose is going to be the easiest thing to do. If the land adjacent to the transfer station is owned by the state or DHHL, then that opens up a whole nother can of worms that's going to take it further down the road. But to me, the obvious thing is to start at the low-hanging fruit And the low hanging fruit in my mind is KAO, as John's pointed out, it's already been planned and designed, finish it. Make access, make, the spaces necessary, build the pads, whatever is necessary to make it happen. The other place is really obvious is Kealakehe. The facility was largely built early on to accommodate multiple recycling opportunities. And interestingly, Atlas Recycling has chosen to lease or own private land on the same roadway that goes into the county's transfer station. And the area that was built to recycle materials is currently abandoned. So there's effectively a building, there's a space, there's a place to put bins behind the building that used to be run by a nonprofit agency in town, and they're gone. So some of the questions that need to be asked are people like Atlas, why are you not on the property that the county's providing for this purpose? Because there may be a really good reason from a business perspective. I don't know what that is. And secondly, why did the nonprofit move out? And thirdly, why isn't the rest of the space that's available at Kealakehe repurposed for this purpose? And I think that every one of these that we create makes it easier to create the other ones.
Yeah.
And the highest hanging fruit is going to be the most difficult. That's going to be when we have to reach out to DHHL or the state and say, we need property here to be able to do this. Then you got to go through legislative processes and boards and commissions and all the stuff to get the permissions to be able to do these things. But let's start with the ones that are easy and obvious and build them one at a time so that we learn from each one and we get successes in each place. And let's find out why those spaces that are available right now are not being fully utilized.
I can help you out.
Yes, John, you had an answer?
Oh, yeah. The state or the county is going to want to be indemnified about anything that goes on there. They're going to want a lot of oversight. That's the reason we ended up where we ended up in Keao, because it was land that was purchased. And it isn't a governmental agency that was going to be totally liable. Like where the transfer station KO is now, with the recycling center on it. The recycling center on it sits on private property. And all of the additions that were to be made to it would all crawl out in that direction. The roadway to get to it, get in and out.
Look for the that exemption. I was able to look.
Ramsey, hot mic.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so as far as the Kealakehe site, Atlas Recycling was on the transfer station and they were running the High Five Redemption Center. So they had the contract to operate the Redemption Center. And then they decided to also open another Redemption Center at the front of the entrance to Kealakehe transfer station. And then eventually, when that contract had ended for the transfer station High Five site, we put it back out to bid, but no one bid on it because there was a private redemption center in the front. So that's kind of the history of why there's that open space currently.
So the open space is on the county transfer station site?
Yeah.
Yes. And it could be repurposed for something else. I mean, the fact that it was used for High Five recycling to start doesn't mean that that somebody else couldn't repurpose that location to further our desire to see more things recycled.
Yeah, so we're also looking at that, other uses for that area.
Lee, you have your hand up.
Yeah, well, I know at least for the Waiahinu transfer station, there is a thrift store on the premises where they will take usable items and you can drop it off and then they'll try and sell it. From what I understood, she made it sound like they had a grant for several other transfer stations as well, but I haven't been to the other one, so it doesn't sound like they're at the other transfer stations, but they do have reuse facilities, at least at Waiahinu. So if they could apply that to the other transfer stations, they're at least big enough to house it because they put it in a trailer. Then you know, that's another option available to the county if they can find someone willing to do that.
Well, we have what, Craig, 7 reuse centers that are run by a private for-profit organization.
Yeah, so there's, let's see, Keaho, Kealakehe, Waiahinu, Hilo, Pahoa, Keao, and I think Lapohoi. And that's run by a separate group. And then these sites aren't grants, they're they went out to bid and I believe it's zero cost.
So we do have reuse centers. They are in some cases hurting for space because they get a lot of stuff donated to them. So I think that aspect of it is going, that's the straight reuse as is, and I hope somebody will come and buy it for a nickel. The other more challenging, which we can also talk about, is the other materials that need some processing, some sorting and fixing, separation that needs to occur before it can be used or actually recycled. That takes a little bit more space, a little bit more knowledge and capability of staffing to handle pulling out the good stuff from the equipment or whatever the waste may be. So I think, I mean, that was the recommendation that I was pushing for the infrastructure grant was, let's do a resource recovery center and build on CAL. But that's not a trivial exercise, and it's something that I think we could still try and pilot and do in baby steps by adding to and one more function, but a lot of pieces have to come together for it. You know, somebody who's going to accept and manage the materials, somebody who wants the materials, transport, storage, getting rid of the actual trash that needs to go to the landfill. So it isn't just, you know, blow it up with an air pump and it's there. It's a lot of work. And basically, as I understood, that was the reason we weren't be able to get ourselves together to do the recycle grant, EPA one, because there needs to be an ongoing commitment from several parties to make it happen. And I guess the question that I would like to put to you all is, do we as a commission want to keep working on it and see what we can do to help make that happen?
So I would like to add, it sounds to me like it's not just a land problem, it's also a staffing problem.
Mhm.
So at a certain point, the council's going to need to get involved and start supporting the DEM financially to a greater degree. I know Ramsey's asked for more money and not been able to get it, but this can't happen without staff involved in the planning process and involved in oversight, and probably also involved in assisting with pursuing federal grants to support these kinds of stations. The other thing that was pointed out a minute ago is that Atlas Recycling figured out another way to do what they want to do. And there are other recyclers in the community who are essentially off campus. They're operating out of private property. We have Reuse Hawai'i is a good example. And so someone needs to reach out to them, and this is probably a staffing problem as well, but it could be an EMC problem. Somebody needs to reach out to Reuse Hawai'i and say, if we could give you space at the transfer stations, would you take it? Could you use it? So we need to be talking to the recyclers. We've talked to, what's our friend's name, the electronics recycler?
Mr. Kadota.
Yeah. So, clearly he's operating on private property. And interestingly, to me at least, the last time he did recycling in West Hawaii, it was in the parking lot of the old Safeway above Walmart. He didn't even choose to go back to the transfer station where he has worked in the past. Now, I don't know why. He has another one scheduled on private property. So, bottom line is that there's a lot of recycling going on that's outside of our purview, but it's reasonable to assume that it's easier to recycle if you can do it all in one place and don't have to drive to 5 different places to recycle your stuff. So again, I think it's a coordination thing, and I think we need to hammer on the council that they need to support the staffing requests that are coming out of DEM, because this is not going to happen if there's not enough people in Ramsey's staff to manage it.
I will say that I have reached out. What I haven't done is go and knock on the door and say, talk to me. I have sent, please, will you talk to me, emails to Atlas and to Reuse Hawai'i, and just haven't been able to get the connection as part of this PIG effort. I will continue to try to get hold of them and invite them to EMC meetings, talk about, just as we had Mr. Kadota, Mr. K come in and talk to us. Can you do it? Do you want to do it? What's keeping you from doing it? Was basically the issue. And so I am willing to, in particular, want to try to connect with them and see if I can get some information. Like I said, I haven't been successful, and part of it was help. I need somebody. But if you certainly, if you know people at Atlas or Reuse Hawai'i, be my guest, talk to them. Otherwise, I'll keep trying to plug along.
Georgine, this is Della Tsuka, in line with what Rick was saying also. Does the DM have a list of all the potential recyclers? They should have a list. Are they contacting them rather than having us looking for people who do it? Because I know a lot of the disposal companies like Leo's, there's an Arujo, I think, that they have companies that they recycle tires and stuff, but now it's become a problem for them because people are just turning in the tires. It's getting costly for some to take it to certain recyclers. So I'm just thinking, if the county has a list of all the businesses that do that, it would help us to have that so we can contact them if that's where it's needed. Or they should have someone in the department that does reach out rather than putting everything up for bid. And sometimes, they don't have time to look for any notices, so that's where we would come in and probably notify them or ask them. Because, I heard it from a refuse disposal that, the county makes it really difficult for them. So I was just wondering, can we have a list of the different businesses that we can
Do
kind of help
you have such a list, Craig?
them, or, is a county environmental department doing that? Contacting all the available companies to help.
Yeah, we could create a list. I came from the high five program, so we have a list with the high five program. And I think it's a common theme that staffing is an issue, like with Atlas Business Services Hawaii. A good example is the Volcano Redemption Center. And the reason why it shut down is because of staffing and vandalism and theft. And we put it back out to bid 3 times and no one bid on it. And we kind of laxed the requirements, hoping that a nonprofit would work with the recyclers, but it was just too much of a hurdle. But we're still trying to figure it out. Maybe one day we could get it back at Volcano again, because we worked hard to get it there in the first place. But yeah, we could create a list.
Okay. And Georgie,
And I can give, I'll share the list that I have been working off of, Craig, and maybe we could put one together and figure out, all right, how do we go through a process to learn what they need and what we might be able to partner with. So I would like to, in the spirit of time, bring this one back up as unfinished business for next meeting and with a little bit more information. Item 2, I want to postpone as well. That was looking at, are there ordinances, county ordinances that we could sponsor, find a council member to sponsor that would get some significant reduction in what's getting landfilled. And I had that as part of the agenda materials. I don't know if anybody had a chance to look through them. Oh, Lee, you had a comment?
Yeah, I was just gonna mention that there's a partial listing of recyclers where you can take your stuff on the county website.
True,
That's
true.
available.
There are certain materials that are identified of where you can take them, particularly for reuse and recovery. Thank you, Lee. So anyway, just wanted to go back. One of the things that EMC can do and is expected, I think, to a degree, are there some recommendations that we would want to make along with DEM to the council to require diversion from landfill? And so I ginned up a list based on what was in the ISWMP, the solid waste management plan, and my own ideas and discussions we've had. If anybody would like to comment on it, any of the ideas, I'd rather bring this back for more time, because we're going to lose Ramsey next, and I want to go to the reports and correspondence on what DEM's up to. Are there any comments on potential diversion ordinances at this time? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to bring that back for next meeting. And hopefully we'll be able to start that meeting on time. So what I'd like to do now, I don't know, does everybody need a bathroom break for 5 minutes? Are you okay?
Yes, will be great.
Yes.
All right, I declare a 5-minute bathroom break. Line. Okay, next up on the agenda is item 7, our reports and correspondence from basically DEM. And I'll get a break back to Councilmember Kirkowitz when she joins us, so she can do her thing and then get back to DEM. So county and state legislative update. What bills, ordinances, resolutions, whatever you're tackling in particular, what you really want to pass and what you really don't want to pass. So we can know what we could do from the EMC side.
Well, definitely, as you all know, there's a lot of bills at this time of the year. So far, we've been very supportive of submitting written testimonies, and I would imagine Peter had shared with you the list of legislative matters that we have submitted testimony for. Definitely, there's things that could benefit our diversion program, as you guys were talking about diversion. The extended producer responsibilities is still a big issue on the packaging. So there's a few ones about electronic. I know we passed one last year, but there's more of certain clarifications as to come to Mr. K process, because there's the accessories that comes with the electronic waste. I believe it was not included in the original bill. So there's something that we need to do just to make sure that all component of electronics get disposed of and recycled. And definitely.
Could I ask about that one? I mean, there are many state laws that go, basically, if you have a plug, it's electrical and you can't landfill it. We have a much narrower scope. And it wasn't clear to me how much bigger were you trying to make it?
Well, the last electronic collection we have on the west side, a lot of people brought in, you're right, the mouse system, other stuff that was not specified in the bill that passed, where currently now the county is pretty much out of it. The vendor will collect all that and handle the recycling and the shipment. So they were worried about that add tonnage to their weight. They wanted more explicit about definition, and it was not including like accessories of computers and what have you. Just talk about computer, laptops and what have you, but it left out accessories, and they felt that since it was not specified in the bill, should they take it from the public or not? And I say take it. Because to me, it comes as part of the electronics, right? Because without it, you cannot run your electronic. But now it's becoming, they argue in the definition of semantics. Is it or is not? And because right now it's they get bait based on getting certain things, so they're afraid that nobody have an end use to these accessories. So, and that discussion is going to continue. I would imagine my recycling group will continue talking to Mr. K as we move forward and see if there's any other clarification to that. Hopefully Mike Rivera and others will cover it in the solid waste division update.
Okay, sorry to sidebar you. There other legislation that you're hoping will move along?
Nothing with the exception whatever Peter had shared with you on our written testimonies. Definitely we, the wastewater, as you all know, after we submitted our our joint report, cesspool conversion report to the Department of Health, and we presented it January 4th to the State Senate. That was followed up with lots of different legislation through Rep. Lowen Nicole Lowen, on getting some of these cesspool conversion funding, certain requirement that requires priority area 1, 2, 3 different time zone rather than wait for the 2050. There is one that specify the priority number 1 to be closed by 2030, so 7 years from now. That's going to bring challenges, even though everybody was in support of it. I think the challenge with that, if you have seen our presentation to county council just a week ago, that's gonna, if that get accelerated and us not having the infrastructure within the Seward area, then they'll be forced to convert to a septic tank. And once they do that, it's hard to get them back on connection. So it's kind of catch-22, unfortunate. Given that challenge, so I have spoken with our consultant trying to figure out if we could come up with a cesspool conversion master plan right away, but and define areas that must connect versus areas they could go septic because there's no other way for them to convert. But you also have the cluster areas where you have more accumulative flow that also will require a decentralized packaging and what have you. So it's a bit complicated. But if we could put it on more virtual layout of map in areas and maybe present it to you, to your commission and to county council's commission to adopt it and become the law of the land, that will be applicable to everybody that requests either diversion or subdivision or what have you. But I think literally we need to get on the wagon and get that moving, just due to the fact of that bill passes for the 2030, we only got 7 years. And the likelihood to get any infrastructure in 7 years, probably it's 0 to none. But I think it's gonna make it complicated. For other counties, yeah, it's gonna benefit them because they already got the infrastructure. Our county, unfortunately, we're so much behind. It's a shame to see priority 1 to go through without getting it organized to connect to these facilities that exist.
Well, I would certainly support that. I would also like to maybe jump, because I had broken that out as item 5, for the agenda on information around that whole conversion process. Del, you had some questions that you wanted to address specifically about the cesspool conversion?
The cost that's gonna be, they're talking about having the homeowners, because, like in Kilkaha alone, I think there's maybe, well, there's 2,500 cesspools on Hawaiian homelands that I know of. But in Kilkaha where I live, the sea level is rising, we've got rock underneath us. So a septic tank would not be an option. And the sewer lines, I'm not sure. But if we get federal funding for the sewer, and to do this project, to convert, why would the part of your group, or part of the cesspool group, said that they're looking at short-term, long-term financial assistance? But being a poorest county, I don't see how, it would be feasible to expect the homeowners to foot the bill if they're getting federal funds to have it done. So, I don't know. Is that clear? Kind of.
The whole
There is-
idea of conversion is a challenge. Your area, we are working with DHHL on sewer in that area because your area is priority number one. So definitely septic ATU is not recommended. So we're gonna recommend DHHL to sewer the entire area for you. And we're working on memorandum of agreement with them. They did phase one. They already sewered that phase one. They're gonna continue doing that because you cannot, you're 100% correct. That area cannot sustain any septic or ATU, and it has to be connected to the Hilo facility plan.
Thank you. Yeah, they're working on it. I'm not yet. I live further in. So they haven't, put in any lines for my area. But, and I mentioned DHHL because I know they have funding and they are helping to fund where, say, the county of Honolulu failed with their project there. So I was just wondering. Because I have no problem, and I don't think anybody in Kilgana has a problem with paying the monthly fee. You know, once we're converted. So, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, were there any other questions now that I diverted us to the work group? If anybody happened to watch the presentation to council? Lee,
This is Commissioner McIntosh. I watched the whole 2-hour segment. I was just kind of disappointed that I mean, yeah, the other islands, they don't, I mean, Oahu has a lot, but they also have a pretty mapped out infrastructure for the sewer system, but for the Big Island, it's like they're all rushing forward and not thinking about us, you know. We have the most cesspools in the entire state, and the county is probably the poorest in the entire state, and the people, we don't have high income, and they want us to jump through all these hoops and meet these ridiculous requirements that are technically and physically impossible to meet. And so I don't understand why they're pushing forward with these dates. I mean, I think a better solution or alternative would be like what you're doing, identifying phases and work on those, and not try to rush and just meet some arbitrary date self-imposed by the working group, or because it's not state law yet for 2030, but and work towards solutions that are long-term and cost-effective, rather than saying, okay, y'all have to do a septic system, and then when the county finally builds out the sewer, you're gonna have to hook up. That's a waste of money and time, materials, and I think Hawaii is creating a crisis that doesn't need to be created, and they just need to step back, and especially for the Big Island, and take stock and look at reality and not panic. And all I see is panicking, and it's very concerning.
Well said, Commission Member McIntosh, well said. I mean, it is a challenge. It is an unfortunate challenge that our county is the biggest county in the whole state with the number of cesspool. And these cesspool converting to septic tank within the sewer area, which is kind of even more concerning. Especially when you have sewer area that potentially could allow for additional revenue and environmental protection to our county. And that's the challenge that I cannot get over myself. We need to continue working with that in mind to avoid any potential catch-22 that could allow us to accelerate and make the wrong decision and regret it down the road, because once people convert to septic, it's hard to get them connected. So
I guess for my side, we do need a kick in the pants. This island is really good at postponing stuff forever. And so having some sort of deadline, I think, is critical to get us to move. On the other hand, you're right, you got to make the best decision. So it may be the priority one in the poorest neighborhoods on Hawaii Island. No, they're not going to be 2030. They're going to be 2040 or whatever the right number is, because the best solution, net cost over the lifetime, several lifetimes, would be to put in sewer. And sewer is going to take long, it's going to take long to build it. But some kind of deadline to force action, or we're never going to do it. You know, we'll wait for the sea rise and that'll clean out all the cesspools. They'll be gone along with the houses. So I think there's a balance, and you're right that the single target may not work for each island because we are different, way different.
yeah, I mean, you guys probably, if you watched the presentation, you have seen that, well, based on the number of cesspools, we're looking at 1,700 to 2,000 conversion per year to even meet the deadline of 2050. If we're gonna go to the 2030 just for the priority area of about 5,200, we're looking at 720 conversion per year just to be able to meet the 2030 deadline. If we end up having money, and let's say magically we get all the money we need to build the sewer infrastructure, going through environmental documentation, we probably already behind the 8 ball to start with, because it's going to be a massive construction project. So yeah, it's I didn't know what I signed for when I took the job. But Rick, I can blame it on you because I saw you first before I committed. But
You
sorry.
had no idea what you were getting into.
I have one question, sorry.
Go ahead.
Del.
Regarding all of this, in light of the Sierra Club's testimony, I know we're rushing to get things done because it's been taking so long. But based on this letter, is there more consideration to be taken before this goes into effect, or in your final
No,
phase?
good question. Thank you, Dil, for bringing it. Yeah, with a great respect to the Sierra Club, as they know, I'm probably the most environmentalist here so far as a director, and I take their concerns to heart. But yet, in the same time, I think under HRS 343, exemption class 1 item 37 allows us to do what we're doing. So the intent for Hilo is we're really not changing it's a operation, maintenance, and replacement of structure that deteriorated over time. So I feel strongly that we met the exemptions. And also, in addition to that, phase 2 is going to have the EA process attached to it to cover both. So just to cover our bases. So when we took this challenge on understanding that could be a catastrophic environmental disaster that could happen given the situation that we were in, talking to everybody around, I felt comfortable on moving forward with the exemption to replace and maintain the current structure to the current design standards. So I'm not designed for expansion.
Oh, thank you. I did, sorry. I did watch 4 hours of that meeting, I found it very interesting. But part of the letter too brings into the fact how we can sustain such a facility with like solar. Was there any consideration in the planning to do solar? And the only reason I say that is because in Waikoloa, they have acres of solar panels. So I'm not sure where their energy is going. But I also knew that in Molokai, they wanted to set up these solar panels all over and send the energy to Honolulu. So I'm just thinking with the design and everything that you're doing to help with the environment, are they looking at some kind of alternative power like solar to generate?
Yeah, phase one, just to let you know, phase one project is to replace the headwork and the digester system and do some minor repair to get us out of this potential catastrophic failure of the current headwork, because it's so bad, deteriorated so badly that the wall is not structurally stable. So our intent to jump in, replace these concrete structure and the units. So we'll have a better equipment, better structure to avoid such catastrophic disaster. And our intent, we've been working with Department of Health, our consultants, and we put in measures to make sure during construction that we don't have any potential mishaps. But sometimes with big construction like this, you're going to anticipate some, but we have operational plan that will be controlled to minimize such exposure. As far as talking about solar versus other technologies, we've been looking at extracting hydrogen out of the wastewater and also our gases out of the digester to connect it to the landfill and be able to produce hydrogen that could be sustainable enough to give our transit department enough hydrogen to run the entire county fleet. But that's being discussed, talked about. Technologies are emerging. Definitely back in the old days, you cannot extract hydrogen from wastewater because it's not as clear and pure as regular water. But my understanding now, technologies, if you have watched Riley Saito's presentation about the hydrogen at the county council meeting last week, he was alluding to the new technology that coming out where it actually could capture wastewater and extract hydrogen. So that could be a plus. So our intent, yes, to, as we replacing structures and component of the current plan, always, how could we capture the resources? Unfortunately, Hilo is less than 3 MGD. It was designed for 5, maximum 13 MGD. Definitely, we need to encourage cesspool conversion connection to that treatment plan. We need to bring that plan ultimately to the design requirements so we could start producing more energy and more gases out of it to be efficiently and sustainable to get your return of investment. Because currently with half flow, the amount of gas that we produce barely enough to heat the boiler that we have. So what the design intent is what we produce from these digesters is going to go back in the system to heat the water, the sludge as it goes back into the digester. So Del, to answer your question, yes, that question of energy efficiency, it's always in our mind. This, particularly the solar, in that area, it rains a lot. And from a solar point of view, we always looking at it. The west side, definitely it could benefit us. But we always looking at these type of options, and we're going to continue seizing opportunities as it comes along.
Thank you.
Well, now you've covered the easy stuff. So let's go over to Puna and talk about the 12,000 lots in HPP, where my council person resides. Or Nanavale with 5,000, 8,050 square foot lot. Eighth of an acre.
And
know-
I think that's a good topic, John. It's a good topic, and Zindo, I think, was gonna give you guys updates on the code, and this is your opportunity to address any code concerns and pertaining to subdivisions and zoning. But as you all know, we have AECOM that are working on the Puna District feasibility wastewater options as well as Pahoa. So we've been working on that to figure out, is it feasible to sewer that district, and and to what extent? So
Well, as a start, and you got the Ainaloa subdivision you should be looking at tapping into too, because those are all small lots. Right, that whole area over there is, again, these 1/5 to 1/8 acre parcels over there. A few thousand of them. And
I agree with you, and I think I encourage
but I mean,
In the spirit of time, John, I think Ramsey's right that we could have a really interesting discussion with Zendo on zoning and how do we mesh the needs for sewering and other infrastructure. And how to deal with historical mistakes.
The zoning's already been done. I mean, these lots exist. We're not talking about something futuristic. This is yesterday's news.
No, I understand
Yeah,
that.
but you could stringent the building permit requirement, even though the lot exists, but you could upgrade the building requirement to make it more stringent if you feel that it need to be more stringent. If there's no buildings or houses on these lots, that's the time to start getting involved in the building code updates as well, because prior to anybody getting a building permit, they need to meet certain requirement. And if you feel these lots are not buildable because of infrastructure, then that become a permit issue. And I think you guys need to bring it up through that type of channel.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean.
It was also one of the things on a deferred topic for what kind of county ordinances could we do to help move along our interests. So we'll try to talk that next time. I will note that the council member Ashley Kirkowitz is here, and maybe we could turn to some good fun news. The project, the grant that she just got, and then we'll go back to Ramsey because Ramsey's disappearing at 11:45. So we do want to get him deeper in some of the things. But Ashley, would you like to tell us about the fun stuff you're doing?
Yeah, thank you, Chairwoman Adams. It's great to see all of you. Thank you for accommodating my request to brief the commission on some work that my office is doing with a couple of county agencies, departments, including environmental management and parks and recreation, and a number of community stakeholders around the island. But first, I just want to take a moment to thank all of you for such a very thoughtful and robust discussion and for volunteering your time to help us solve some of our really pressing, expensive issues here on Hawai'i Island. So thank you. I'm the kind of person that is not going to ask you to do something if I'm not willing to do it myself. And so I'm always harping on county administration to go after federal grants. So I wrote a couple, and my fortunate luck was able to secure a couple of federal grants. One of them that I'll talk about today is the National Endowment of the Arts, NEA, Our Town Grant. Highly competitive, only 60 awards are provided to counties across the country every year. This is the first Our Town grant that our county has ever received. City and County of Honolulu and Maui County have received this grant in the past. And the idea is, how do we use arts to engage community, to build local economy, but also to solve issues. And one of the issues that we wanted to elevate was this overconsumption of plastic in our daily lives and how we might take this, what is seen as a waste, as a liability, and turn it into an asset. We were awarded a $75,000 grant from NEA, required a $75,000 match from the county administration. So we've got $150,000 to work with over the next couple of years. And what we're going to be doing is a creative placemaking project that intersects arts, technology, plastic waste, innovation, community creativity, and creates functional artwork that will be installed at county parks around Hawai'i Islands. We worked with Parks and Recreation to identify communities that would be at the top of their priority list in terms of having these kinds of functional artworks and engaging community. And so those 4 areas are East Hawaii, for East Hawaii and Hilo, that's the King Kalakaua Park. And one of our collaborators on that is the East Hawaii Cultural Center. In Kailua Kona, Hale Halavai, which is often used to host many community events. And this is an opportunity to elevate local stories and culture through artwork. Down south in Ka'u, Na'alehu Park. And as we know, there's a very little infrastructure there. So a great way to engage community in technology and design thinking processes. And up in North Hawaii and Kamuela side, Mahukona has been the other beach park that has been identified for community planning and art installation. And so some of the things that we are looking to do with this project is to get artists, youth, community members engaged in planning. We want folks to understand basic principles of planning and design thinking and to be part of co-creating public art. We see this as an opportunity to bring things like technology and allow kids and community members to tinker and find ways to be really creative about solving issues. We see this as a way to diversify our economy and build up the tech and creative industries on Hawai'i Islands. Again, really passionate about building up capacity and skills in our next generation. So very intentional about engaging youth every step of the way so that they know how to exercise their voice and know how to leverage the assets within their community. We are also using this project as a way to raise public awareness of our waste streams and the fragility of our island ecosystem. We don't have the luxury of shipping our trash elsewhere. We've been doing that in the past, this fabrication of, oh, let's recycle. All of that recycled waste is actually getting shipped to China and Thailand and being discarded and burned there. And so we have to take responsibility at the production level, absolutely. But these are liabilities that are going into our local landfill and sitting there forever. And so really want to raise collective consciousness about that. So folks at an individual and community level can start taking a look at their consumption habits and hopefully move away from plastic. But this is not something that we're going to be getting rid of overnight. And so just wanted to engage community around how we might be able to take what is otherwise a piece of waste and create a new plastic material and functional artwork for community. We've got a number of various project partners that are engaged. Temple Children, Mia Sukazaki, she is the director of that organization, is going to be serving as project director. I will continue to convene conversations and be out in community working with folks. We've got East Hawaii Cultural Center that is going to be leading the youth engagement piece in partnership with Christian Wong at the Hawaii Science and Technology Museum. We've also got the great folks at Volcano Precious Plastics involved. They're really excited to be collaborating with our thought partner and technical assistant, Think Thing, out of Detroit, Michigan, which specializes in, taking waste plastics and converting them into a new material. They were contracted by, I think, one of the counties within Detroit, Michigan, to be doing what we're doing right now, but for that particular community. So a lot of lessons learned, and I think a lot of folks here on island just really eager to understand Think Think's process and how we might be able to build up that kind of tech ecosystem here on islands. We're also partnering with various friends of the park around the island. And so we've also met with representatives from the Department of Education. I know that Mia and other team members have met with principals and others in the Ka'u area just to get folks aware that This is happening. We're coming to their community. We're eager to hear what is important to them in terms of stories, histories, and values that we might be able to elevate through local art. In addition to the functional art pieces that will be installed, there's going to be some development of murals to kind of help contextualize and add a bit more context to the art pieces that are created. Chair, if I have screen share capabilities, I would love to be able to just kind of show all of you some of the work that our technical partner ThinkThing has been able to produce. And this is just to give you an idea of what's possible for Hawaii Island. May I share screen? Is that cool with you, Chair?
Yeah. Yeah, can you do that, Peter, for?
Yep, you're enabled.
Thanks, Peter. All right. Got plastic here. And these plastics are HDPE, so think soaps, shampoo, conditioner, laundry detergent, highly durable, very colorful. They'd be shredded and poured into molds to be able to create functional products. So this is a process that ThinkThing has utilized, rotomolded plastic, and they've created some typeface seating. Again, this is all very experimental, just to show community what's possible. This one's my favorite. This is where they melted down and used an extruder and steel barrels to kind of create some texture around what's been named a rainbow. I would love to see a rainbow in every park. It's very interesting sculpture, very quirky, very adaptable, can be used as something to just take a cool picture with and move down, and you can have a chat with friends.
Can I encourage you to speed along? We're going to lose Ramsey
Yeah.
and we need him to
No
tell us
worries.
some more things.
Sure.
Thank you.
Of course, Chair. Just wanted the opportunity to share what's happening around the island and how we're leveraging federal grants to kind of do some innovative work here. This is a pillow lamp that's been designed. ThinkThing has also created some home furnishing products like clocks. And then these are their little friends that they've created and they install throughout various parks so that folks can see what exactly you can do with plastic. Anyway, Chair, that's just to give everybody a sampling of what's possible with ThinkThing's technical assistance. We are excited to be working with youth around the island and anybody that has an interest in learning design thinking and how to leverage technology and do something cool and innovative with discarded plastic. Happy to field questions from the commission. And also, with your permission, would love to be able to invite commission members to join our team during community outreach meetings. So you can see all the great work that's coming out of outreach, ideation, and creation.
No, appreciate it. We'll have Peter send us any notices that you put out so that those of us who can participate. It looks like fun, and I like the idea that you have multiple reasons for doing it. It's not just, well, we'll make something cute looking out of plastic. A lot of good things. Any other comments or questions? Obviously, you can talk to Ashley later. Right now?
Is there a list of the businesses or whatever that are collection points?
John, that's a really great question. Right now, we're trying to determine with ThinkThing the amount of plastic that is needed to support the project. We want to be careful about having too many kind of sort and collection days and not being in a position to store all of that really wonderful material. But we do want to be able to partner with DEM and use transfer stations as collection points, local schools. It would be great if there were businesses on board, but these items are incredibly bulky. And so the idea is perhaps we are going to need shredders around the island, just so that we're taking up a lot less space and can store some of the plastic material. But that's an active discussion that we're having with DEM and our community partners. Oh, and I forgot to mention, Chair, we're going to be setting up a collaboratory, a plastics innovation lab where we can come and tinker. How great is that? Invite all of you once we set that up to come and tinker and create with us.
Okay. Well, I thank you. If there are any other questions, thank you for being able to come and share something that ought to be a fun learning experience. Not necessarily the answer to diverting waste from landfill, but get people thinking in new ways is always good.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And now, if we haven't lost Ramsey, I'd like to go back to doing the agenda like we're supposed to. I think he and Peter will be updating us on the latest legislative status from at the state level on what's moving and not. And individually, you're always welcome to submit comments on that, unless there's something else on the legislative arena that you wanted to mention, Ramsey. Otherwise, we can move on to any comments you might have about budget and what assistance EMC could be on that, other than saying more.
Definitely, I think about legislation. First, I want to thank Councilmember Korkowitz. She's done a great job with that presentation. Definitely, we will continue working with every council members trying to navigate any possible diversion from things going to the landfill and put it to a better use. With that said, I think as far as legislation update, we talked about it. I think we covered it all. Peter could provide you what we did last year, which is a spreadsheet with the bill number, the intent, and what have you. So you guys could either participate, get involved, and review. I know we covered item 5 as well. Dill had a great questions that we covered it prior to that presentation. As far as the budget, definitely, there's challenges with the CIP project versus the status quo budget that we have to submit every year. And as you guys were involved, if you've seen the presentation, we pretty much got, Mr. Inaba, council member Inaba, have raised up the question about, the integrated waste water management plan that I've been preaching to have since my early nomination. If you guys remember, that was a hot topic that we needed to create one, but given the cost of, and we work with Tim Richards, former council member Tim Richard, and he assisted us in trying to secure some money to do the integrated waste management. But we were able to secure $500,000 last year, which is in this current year. Just to let you know that the ACOM study just for the Puna district and Pawuko area, it added up to almost, Kelly, is it about almost $4 million just between these two? And that just the two districts. So imagine trying to do integrated wastewater management plan for the whole island. So my intent and strategy, these were grant money. So we could secure more grants, I guess, to do these studies unless the county wanted to put a $5 million possibly just to do such a report. But it's going to be the law. Also, there's one bill that going right before I think, I don't remember if it's a state bill or HB bill that's gonna require, I think that was from the CISPO Conversion Committee. They recommended by a certain amount of year, I forget the year, that you have, every county has to have the wastewater management integrated plan. So that we need to accomplish. The way to accomplish it here, because we are so decentralized, is we have to do it in pieces and bring it back all together. But yet, I think the one that we really need to do first is the CISPO conversion master plan that will allow us to assist the homeowners of decision making of what they need to do to convert and what options they have. So definitely, all these are in the hopper. We have not added that $5 million for the wastewater integrated management plan, because I think in the budget, because it will go under capital improvement. And as you all know, my priority for capital improvement is the Hilo, the Kalakaua, and the Palo Na'alehu, and the North Kona pump station, because eventually we may lose that $19 million grant if we don't start acting and delivering on such a project. So these are the challenges that I'd like you guys to just think about. Nothing easy in the wastewater, nothing easy in the solid waste. But yeah, so you know, from that aspect of things, I know there's other stuff listed in your agenda that Mike Rivera and Dora Beck will give you more updates. The good thing is the Hilo waste treatment plant out on the streets. This is a major accomplishment. I just, you know, we came in, we knew we'd facing with potential environmental catastrophe. Every elected official was involved in the process and seen it firsthand. Coming in and finishing a project that big with this magnitude within less than a year, it's never heard of. It's kudos to my staff, definitely Chris Farber, Mark Grant, Kelly Hartman, that they really, and our consultant, that their engineers were working around the clock just to get the design going. It's about 8-inch thick document, just the technical specification without the plan itself, which is about 3-inch thick. So it's, I can't wait till we break ground this summer and get going on that as we work with phase 2 to get it finalized and ready to go as well. So there's definitely good stuff. The Kalakaua treatment plan. I don't know if it's too early to share with you or not, but we've been working with Corolla Engineering to bring a mobile unit, which is R1 mobile unit, to be able to station it at the Kalakaua treatment plant for educational purpose, to educate the public and our operators and anybody that's interested in the wastewater, to assist in expediting and understanding the reason for these decentralized clustered cesspool conversion, because they eventually going to be required to construct a package unit because of the cumulative flow. So that's being worked. We're trying to figure out the details, but I could share the vision I have for Kalakaua with you as well.
definitely, as you all know, we're working on getting that sand filter design finalized. With that in mind, definitely our effluent quality will be fine to R1 level, and way better than the effluent quality that we have currently. So with that, Kalakaua, as you all know, it's also bird sanctuary. Georgiana, I've seen some of the pictures that you guys took. So when you sent me the picture, I said, wow, how could we turn that to revenue source? And given the difficulties that I have to deal with from a financial point of view, my mind went into that black hole and said, well, Kalakaua could be actually a great ecosystem standalone that we could, once we get that sound filter, my vision to my staff is get the sound filter, see if we get additional land to grow a native Hawaiian plant that could be irrigated by the R2, R1, because it's not a human consumption, but yet get that mobile unit that we're working with Corolla to allow the educational aspect of the wastewater, because a lot of people really don't know what happened to the wastewater when they flush the toilet, right? So with that educational unit on site and the bird watching on site, where we could build a walk-in rails, people could go in, take pictures, understand the wastewater, see the mobile unit, see the end product producing Hawaiian native plant, or garden type level with the R1 coming out of that educational unit, become the full ecosystem sites. And that could generate revenue from tourism and local alike, maybe with separate different fees to enter the site. So,
my husband's a bird watcher, so he's been pushing on making it easier to get out there.
So I could see that to really be the ultimate solution for that treatment plan, with the idea that we inherited some aerated lagoon, but it was a sanctuary, so let's put it to good use. So with that said, yeah, there's a lot of things that we're working on, and I'm hoping that'll be an ultimate solution for that community and anybody who has concern or issues pertaining to that. That will take us away from discharging that water into the sump, put it to a better use. If we cannot get the North Kona constructed in time because it has the conveyance system that's going to take the R1 to other facility, but in the meantime, we could create that sanctuary ecosystem facility that could generate revenue until we fight the other battles pertaining to the infrastructure being constructed along that highway. So it's challenged because of the lack of staffing, as you heard from our staff. That's why I gave kudos to Mark and Chris and Kelly, and because they the three that really I've been dependent on them to deliver the master planning, the AOC negotiation, Kalakaua. I heard the local treatment plan as well. Just I want to let the Sierra Club also be aware that package unit, it was a replacement. The reason we did exemption, similar to what we did at Hilo. So it's nothing new. It was a replacement of this in kind to the same unit. I think the information, I forgot her name, but I think the information she presented is inaccurate in regard to the price. Initially, the first bid package, it came at $5.2 million, not $500,000. And that's why it was rejected. The idea was to build, replace the current unit with something in kind. So we went through the sole sourcing or from the same manufacturer just to come take the old unit and put a new unit. And that under 343, we exempted as well.
Thank you. I too would like to acknowledge that you guys have done a tremendous job in moving a really complex bunch of projects fast and working to get EPA to go along with your ideas is admirable. And I think that there is action as if there were a fire under all you guys to get that going. And that's part of the, well, we maybe needed a deadline, and we needed some really creative people who are now at DEM to make it happen. So thank you for that. I'd also like to remind everybody, we did provide information about the integrated waste water management planning. And I, for one, and I hope Rick, as long as you're still in the area and care, whether or not you are part of this commission, that you too will be watching to make sure that the basic concepts that we've recommended be in, whether it's a mini master or the master wastewater water resource management plans are looked at carefully. And so far so good from what I've been able to tell. Lee has his hand up. What would you like to say?
Yeah, the package plant replacement you're talking about, was that the one you said it would be easier to hook up? It was like a mile away from the sewer system to run a pipe rather than replace it or continue running it. Did y'all change your minds?
I don't know which one, Lee, you're talking about. The one that was brought up is in Coloco. It's already existing to provide affordable housing, the treatment. So one of the unit went out, so we're replacing it in kind. I'm trying to remember which one. You're talking about having a package unit with a sewer extended. There is, during the conversion presentation, they were talking about having a decentralized clustered package unit within isolated communities that may have a cumulative flow, and where you have to bring the unit and you have to do a sewer line to connect that sewer line to the unit. But you have to build that sewer infrastructure and take it all the way where you're gonna put that package unit. And the mobile unit I was talking about, it's more for educational. It's very small. You tow it in your truck or your vehicle just to go around. So what we're gonna do is station it in Kalakaua for the educational purpose. So people get a visual of wastewater coming in, wastewater being treated, wastewater exiting out, treated. Do you remember if there's a project inside or it just was?
I remember when you came on, you had mapped out all the different sewer, all the different projects that that the DEM was in charge of, and then you had you listed all the problems, and this sounded like one where they had two units, they had cannibalized one to keep one unit running, and so you
Yeah,
had said
what you're talking about probably when we first came in, the Pahala Na'alehu proposed design was aerated lagoon. It was, and we came in, we said, you don't need that big of a design. Let's bring package units. That's the one that got us to trigger revising the discussion with EPA, and we got away from the aerated lagoon at Pahala Na'alehu. And we, right now, under the new revised AOC, with the idea to look at these package unit in addition to the IWSs as well. So we were successful to renegotiate that AOC with EPA when we first started. Right now, we have a revised AOC, allows us to do preliminary engineer report to evaluate the options I just stated. Yes, yeah, you're right. That when we first started, I presented to you the package unit with 2 units running, and 1 unit could be taken out of function as you maintaining it, and the other units. And these type of standard, we may look into these units for like the Puna districts. These type of units are options as well, because it's just the zone 2 we in. So always package units will be considered as an option every time we talk about the possibility of a waste treatment system.
All right.
Georgianne, you muted.
Lee, if you remember which one exactly that you were worried about, go ahead and send a note off to Ramsey and they can follow up.
Yeah.
I'd like to, I think you're supposed to, Peter's probably pushing you out the
yeah.
door to
Sorry,
your
guys.
next meeting.
I
Maybe
gotta
we
drive, so thank you. Rick, do you have a question for me before I head out?
Well.
Yeah, I don't have a question. I got a statement. The one thing I haven't heard mentioned today is public-private partnerships. There is currently a citizens initiative pushing for a public-private partnership at Kahaluu to take 350 cesspools out of existence. That process seems to be moving well with the support of Councilman Holeka, Inaba, and Rebecca Villegas. I also have bad news, and that is that the Hawaii district manager for boating has resigned, and he was the power behind our moving forward to sewer Honokahau Harbor. He was not getting, one of the reasons he resigned, he was not getting support from the higher ups in the boating program for that, even though we had $7 million to do that project. So I am concerned that we may not see that project move forward. But I think it's also important to note here that the state does have places like Honokahau on this island that need to be part of this discussion. And when you have state managers that are opposing sewering their facilities, you really have a problem. So I just wanted to get those statements on the record so people were aware that was going on, and also to remind people that public-private partnerships are undertaken on this island. There are private wastewater companies operating on this island that are anxious to be part of the solution. So we can't forget that as an option.
Here's before I leave, I know I'm gonna be running late, but great statement, Rick, and I 100% agree with you. It's a shame that the state itself not leading by example. As they lead these cesspool conversion, their sister agencies and department refuses to look at the option of connecting and working with the county as a team to achieve that ultimate solution. It's a shame. Number two, I definitely encourage, and I talked to a few council members as well. I recommend that you guys get involved in looking at the possibility to create an annexed area for these private entities to be able to secure their infrastructure and guaranteed connections if they know they were given a 5-mile radius, that they the only one that could provide such services. That way they could go in, construct the infrastructure, put the capital costs, with the incentive that everybody within that 5-mile radius will be connected to them. We need to pass a law, a new policy. I talked to council member Inaba and Villegas with the idea that we need to draft a bill to allow private entity annexed area of sewer service. That way they know their boundary and they know their expenditure, and they're gonna put the capital costs with the understanding money is gonna come back at certain time to cover their investment. So with that said, I hope you guys continue fighting for this and pushing that and break. That's the only way I could see private involvement. Once they get these annexed area, they feel more comfortable to spend the money for the services. With that said, thank you so much.
One quick question, is that's on the state level, right?
Which one? The
County.
annex?
Yeah,
The annex area, actually, think of it as political district area, but we need to draw boundary for like Hawai'i water, American water. The county will have its own boundary. So we shouldn't have that entire county say we're gonna provide services, because it's outrageous because we don't have that infrastructure. So when you take like Kalua treatment plant, and you said, okay, now I'm gonna expand your annex boundary to about 5-mile radius or 10-mile radius, or Manalani area to include Puuko subdivision. So once you give these entities a boundary, they'll be committed to put the capital investment. And that, I think you probably, John, you could do it in the county level, similar to, it could be like what Spectrum and Hilco is doing. They have certain area that they provide services to. So
Yeah,
somebody needs to look into that.
what I'm trying to get at is, this has to start with a state action. The state has to sign off on this.
That I don't know. That's why we need legal. We need guys to figure out
Well,
how.
I think Sierra Club, you should have this on your desk, looked into it, and I think that's the conclusion they reached, that we've got to get this to the state first.
Oh, if you want me to submit testimony, I'll be more than happy. But let's find somebody willing to take it on. Let's start submitting testimonies, because to me, that's the only way you're gonna get these cesspool converted for areas within private entities that provide wastewater treatment plant, period. Because the county is not gonna extend the infrastructure.
Right.
And what Rick was talking about, that 300 houses, it's perfect location for Hawai'i Water to expand their services and get out of the red tapes of, anything in between. So just create, annexed area, annexed service area that is designed, delegated, and designated to these utility companies. And most of these utility company under the, but the UBC, right? So they cannot gauge the prices and what have you, because they have more restriction than we do on how to set the fees. So sorry, I got 9 minutes now.
Here
I'm
wants
probably
me to shoo you out the door. Shoot.
good discussion.
You answered my question.
John, give me
Well,
a
we
call,
will, I
man.
wrote it
We'll talk
down. We'll
more
figure
about
out how to get it on the agenda for next time.
it. All
And,
right.
all right. And we're all gonna, we're getting tired, and we need to repack our bags again, because you know how that goes. Anyway, for the remaining people, Kelly, I don't know if there's anything in particular that you have on the latest planning. I think according to all your Gantt charts, everything's moving along pretty well. I'm so impressed with those charts, I can't tell you.
I have a quick update if you'd like to hear about Pahala, Puna, Puuko, the projects I'm working on. If you'd like an update, I can run through it.
Sure, go.
Okay, So for the Pahala Nalehu AOC project, we're in compliance with the AOC deadlines. The items that have been completed, we're continuing to update the webpage monthly. Thank you, Peter. We evaluated and submitted the feasibility of potential projects to the EPA, which was approved. We had our submitted our January semi-annual report. We had a quarterly EPA meeting in January, and February we just had our public meeting. I think they had about 30 people in attendance. Things went well. Brenda did a great job on that. The milestones that are coming up on deck, we have to, we're currently reviewing the draft preliminary engineering report for Pahala. And then that is to be submitted to the EPA in May. We're looking at a quarterly EPA meeting in April. And then, you know, further down the line, we have to submit our environmental information document after the PER's approval, and develop a cesspool closure implementation plan 30 days after the environmental document. And so we're starting to talk about maintenance models, reviewing the maintenance models and evaluating the code for each model. So things are going well for that project. I can move on to the wastewater plans, the addition of wastewater services for Puna. The project is on schedule. We've completed the review of the draft programmatic environmental impact statement. That is going to be, the draft is going to be submitted. We're coming up in March 23rd, so look for that, and please comment. We have a 45-day comment period. The draft facility plan has been completed and submitted to the county, where the review is currently in progress. And then next up on that project, we have to complete the facility plan. For Pulco has a really long schedule, so we're not making a ton of progress on Pulco. We are on schedule, but the project was executed in August, and the next deliverable we're looking for is in April. So we're looking for the project definition report to come to us in April, and we will be completing the wastewater master plan draft August 2024. So that project is a long schedule. And I also just wanted to mention, I didn't see two other projects on the list, the agenda. The Pahoa wastewater facility, wastewater feasibility and cost study is underway. And we also have a capital improvement project plan that we're developing in partnership with the EPA, who helped us get a consultant. And so what we're doing is we have compiled our capital improvement project inventory for wastewater. And so we're developing a cost benefit analysis. And so right now we're in the process of setting up, you know, our higher level goals, our criteria, and then the actual metrics we're going to use to prioritize our projects. And this will help us when we submit our CIP budget annually. And the second part of that project is going to be our financial plan. So more on that in the future. And that's what I have for you today.
Just a question. Given, you know, with a lot of the inundation of the subdivisions along the coast and Leilani, was there any discussion there about getting, you know, the conversion systems moved into those subdivisions as they're rebuilt?
Sorry, which conversion systems?
Well, I mean, basically all of those areas that were inundated by the lava, all of those TMKs were being served by individual cesspools. Well, now they're going to rebuild. The county's in the process of rebuilding the roads. And it would be, if you were going to get, they're already planning on laying new water infrastructure into the new roads. So this would be an opportunity to simultaneously, get a wastewater systems going in that area.
Yeah, so that area is going to be evaluated in the facility plan. That being said, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I don't think we're considering going into the private neighborhoods. It's going to be more focused on the business development area of those communities, because it's
Well,
private.
Those communities were major destinations for tourism. I mean, that's it's both the commercial agriculture, because they were raising some very unique plants down there in that area. And they weren't growing them on the ground. These were all in greenhouses. The climate of that area was unique for these particular plants. And then there was, of course, the visitor part of it, as a tourist destination, which it still will be, simply because the lava is quite interesting to look at, right? So, and those people are all planning on moving back and going back into those businesses. So we are talking about a business environment.
The zoning might over there, because we looked at the the density, because the cost effectiveness is really dependent on density and the number of customers that you can bring in. I think they're estimating just the linear, it's like a $1,500 per linear foot of pipe. And so when you start looking at expanding beyond the businesses, it becomes ineffective really quickly. But yeah, I would recommend that you review the facility plan draft when we submit that, and we'd love to have your comments and those types of community concerns rolled in, because we're from looking at it from the population growth, business economics, and engineering and cost effectiveness. So we do need to solicit that public feedback.
Okay, so it sounds like you'll be getting a chance to look at some other documentation, John.
Yeah, okay, so, well, I mean, Main Street has been, following this, because of course it's important to the town, because as a visitor destination, the businesses there, are they being counted? Were they?
So let's see, where is so PAHOA? We've completed the project definition report. So really it's just the area and the general description of the town. We held a feasibility workshop internally. And so we're looking at the draft feasibility study coming out in April, end of April. And this doesn't, because we're not doing like an EA with this, it doesn't require public feedback, but we should work with Ashley. She's going to have a town hall meeting coming up. I want to say March 23rd. She's invited us to. So we will be working with Ashley Kirkowitz.
Okay.
Yeah, to get some community input, because we don't technically, there's no requirement for it in this specific project, but we definitely want to keep the community involved.
Well, the town wastewater system is already on the books, right? The money's been appropriated, and they've already drawn the plans for it. And they're already looking at its expansion, because of course the town is expanding with a new library and a new medical facilities, and there's all kinds of new stuff coming in. So connectivity for that, of course, to the new sewer system. But thinking about where those visitors are coming from the surrounding area, Forest Services in Pahoa, that whole section along the coast, part of which was inundated, was a major attraction. And now with this, I can't tell you, the town is now flooded with people going out and looking at the flows. It is a major destination in and of itself, and of course, the county helped out by putting the road back right down the middle of the eruptive stream. You can literally drive down the flow corridor from where it came out of Fissure 8 all the way to the ocean. So we're not having any trouble there getting customers.
Well, it sounds like a report is coming out in April for you to look at, and if you want to separately ask some individual questions, I'll tell you to buzz on Ramsey.
Yeah, no, I've already twisted his ear.
Okay, Lee, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I was gonna say if their houses were destroyed by the lava and they have to rebuild, they'll have to install a septic system because they can't. That's the law now for 2050. So you don't have to worry about that part.
It's already noon, guys. We haven't heard from solid waste, well, bits and pieces we have. I guess the one question going back up, we were just doing for minutes purposes, section 7.4. Now we're gonna bump back up to 7.3 and just ask the generic question of Mike or Craig, if there's any immediate short-term thing you want to tell us about.
Well, I'll talk real quickly. The traffic study or trailer study is done. So I can go real quickly into that. There's some issues that need to be done for those conditional facilities to be approved by the director, but that study is done. The LCA study is under review by that is also done. It's being reviewed by the administration right now before we report out on that study, as well as the organic food study is done and also in review. So those two all three studies are done. I can report out on the trailer study on that if you would like. Other than that, the major pressing issues going on in solid waste, I'll let Craig speak for recycle. Waihino's winding down. The asphalt will be initiated tomorrow. Kailua landfill, the closed landfill, there's a construction meeting out at the site tomorrow to remediate the sinkhole out there at that facility. And at the Hilo station out there, we have refurbishment of the inbound and outbound scale. So the outbound scale is complete. The inbound scale is being worked on, and that should be completed by the end of this week. Actually, Lapahoho, we are in initial contract negotiations or finishings there, and that'll replace the retaining wall, the chute, and do some upgrades to the leachate and stormwater systems out there. So that's a quick issue on what's going on in solid waste. If you want conditional facilities on the trailers, these other sites, they have to go through a series of design work and upgrades on signage, traffic flow, that type of thing. So based on the study, which was using an auto turn software, we used a full-size pickup, a 6x9 trailer, and studies were conducted on all 21 transfer stations around the island. Some of the conditions that we put forth as a division in this study was that the trailer and the truck must be able to turn around without reversing. Then the trailer could not stop out in a major roadway or outside the facility. And there had to be sufficient room for other vehicles to maneuver around the truck and the trailer. And the main point here on this study was that reversing within the facility was considered unsafe. But conditional facilities, so the next step from here is to go into some design work with a consultant, that hasn't been done yet, and figure that out. And then work on these facilities here: Glenwood, Hilo, Honoka, Kiau, Kilauea, Ocean View, Pahoa, Volcano, and Waimea. And then when Waihino is finished in the new facility, that facility will be ready to go with trailers and trucks. The issue with Waihino is that we have equipment being delivered in August for a truck and tractor trailer as well. So that facility will, as well as staffing, be in kind of a delay, but we'll open up sections of that at the time. Lastly, some studies that hopefully we can report on that should be initiated now that we've completed these other ones are the curbside study for the island. We'll be able to conduct that study to determine whether or not curbside collection makes sense here. And along with that study would determine how many full service transfer stations will be needed in order to handle the collection vehicles that are around the site. And then we talked about it earlier, I heard it, landfill siting study will also be assembled this year and put out for bid. And that will basically determine, is it feasible to actually construct a landfill on the east side of the island or on the south side of the island, as well as what is the feasibility of expanding out the West Hawaii sanitary landfill, as well as determine other sites that make sense to put a future landfill there. So you'll see those two projects coming down the line, and we'll be able to report on that as how they're going in terms of feasibility there. And that's what I have.
Great.
Just a comment on that.
John, you wanted to say something?
Sure.
Is in that working any discussion of the ingress egress to the KO complex? That is a major sore point, because you're pulling off of and into 50-mile-an-hour traffic on the bypass lane there, and it's hairy.
John, there's
no adequate acceleration and deceleration lanes.
Yeah, there's some issues with the Kiau site that we're working on as a division here. And one of them is the structures of the reuse center there that needs to be addressed, along with what you're saying there, the traffic flow. So there's as well as land acquisition out there. So those three things are in the works, as well as developing a master plan for the Kiau site. So that I didn't mention that because it's way in the preliminary stages of that, but that is something that I know we need to do as well for that facility.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping it'll get up on the screen sooner rather than later, because the numbers of people that are moving into Puna is just astounding.
I agree.
Okay. Craig, was there anything you wanted to highlight in the next 5 minutes?
No, nothing really pressing. We completed all the e-waste events, and now it's the manufactured funded e-waste collections has started. And the designated drop-off center is Mr. Case. And I also want to add that as the weather gets better, then we'll probably look at doing small repairs at the Hilo reuse and Pahoa reuse also.
Cool.
Thank you.
All right. I am done with this meeting. Future items to go on here. I've got a whole list of things that we had to carry over because we didn't have time to talk about them. Our next meeting is March 29th. If you've got ideas for the agenda, send them to me, or better yet, Peter, and we'll pull together a draft agenda. Otherwise, our next meeting is in Kona, in person, March 29th, a Wednesday. And we will, Peter, be doing a roster check, make sure we're going to have quorum. And Any other last comments? Or I will listen to a motion to adjourn.
Georgine,
Yeah,
did-
Rick, wanted to say something.
Peter, do you have any knowledge about the replacement commissioners and where they are in the process?
Hi, Peter, sir. We do have Laura Ocasio. She's nominated for Council District 2. She'll be appearing before the council committee on March 7th. So, and then if has a positive nomination by committee, approval by council in the second meeting of March, then she could take the oath and appear as a commissioner for District 2 at the next meeting.
Is that the only application that's currently in effect or in process? Is that the only application currently in process?
That is the only nomination that I know of. If there are other applications that are in the mayor's office, but have not been acted on, I don't know how them.
Okay,
If you know somebody in your area, Rick, or Dee's, that would be wonderful.
well, it's my understanding that somebody has applied for the Commissioner's District 8 seat. She's a marine biologist, a PhD, taught at a university level, so I'm not clear why that is not coming forward. I guess, I don't know, maybe I'll reach out to the mayor's office, see if I can figure out why.
They move slowly, that's why.
Yeah,
If I can, all commissions have members that are terming out this year, so it's not just us that have vacancies, it's everyone that one person has to find volunteers for. So.
Oh, come on, it's all your fault.
Okay. Any other last minute questions, comments? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
second,
Yeah, all in favor?
Bye.
Okay, thank you, guys. Been a long meeting. And see you next time.
have fun in Africa.
Thank you.